Welcome back to Performance Process. My name is Ronan McLaughlin and I will be your host as usual. We're taking a look at something I've been questioning quite a bit of late. We all know that proper fueling is crucial for peak performance, but could the very strategies that boost that performance also be wrecking our teeth? Today we're joined by Jason Henry. Jason is a specialist in oral surgery with over 15 years of experience in advanced dental procedures, teaching and surgical training. He works at and runs the Rosconnor Clinic, where he helps manage complex oral surgery and implant cases, and he's been heavily involved in postgraduate education across the UK and Ireland. Outside of dentistry, Jason is a decorated cyclist, an Irish national champion on the track, and a former cyclocross champion in his age category. Jason has joined us today to discuss the impact of high-carb fueling strategies might have on our teeth and what cyclists can do to mitigate that risk without compromising performance. Jason, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Ronan, for inviting me along and giving me the opportunity to have a catch up with you this morning. I think most people, their dentist might not be their first person they'd want to see in any morning. So we are a friendly bunch, despite the procedures that we maybe have to put patients through.
Yeah, well, I can say I think it's also worth mentioning, there's a bit of a stereotype about dentists and some of the prices that are charged for bikes these days. And I think before we kick off, it's maybe worth just mentioning that you did the cyclocross worlds, the gravel worlds, and the road worlds last year, all on one bike. And that one bike wasn't even a Pinarello.
Yes, it was Ridley cyclocross bike. Through default, I had got used to riding the bike training, and so at the end of the day, it was fitting its purpose. And before I knew it, I was signed up to do the cyclocross world championships and qualify. The bike came through, and with training a bit of road miles in early season on it, I just kept riding the road races with the cyclocross bike then, and then when I was fortunate enough to qualify for the Masters Gravel Worlds with a different set of wheels, we kind of rode the same bike. So there was no need for going to any extremes or any further expense.
Brilliant. Well, N equals 1 in this case, and it worked out quite well for you. I suppose this conversation sort of stems from, I was in to see you with a dental procedure that I needed earlier this year, and we got talking before you injected me with that stuff that meant I couldn't talk. And it's something that's been on I think everybody's mind of late as we hear a lot about the benefits of high carb fueling for endurance sports. But from a dental perspective, what actually happens to our teeth when we consume these drinks and gels and chews and everything, which are quite often basically just various types of sugar?
Yeah, it's certainly something, as you mentioned, Ronan, you've been thinking about. As a dentist, I've kind of been struggling with it for a long time, because when we're on the bike, we're first priority is to fuel and keep going, and more and more the fuel consumption and the carbohydrate consumption has been going up and up. And I surprised and not surprised when I looking at and listening to a podcast actually from some of the competitors of the recent Unbound gravel event in the US, and so I was listening to Rob Britton, who had won the Unbound XL, and he said that his visits to the dentist were becoming more frequent now with his training, and he said used to be he went along to the dentist and had a filling. Now he said every time I go, it's a root filling, and that probably speaks volumes. The other person, Cameron Jones, won the Unbound main event, and again, listening to Cameron, his carb intake was 160, 180 grams of carbs per hour. And, there's definitely a high volume of carbohydrate passing our teeth for a long period. And the teeth are becoming the casualty of that. And so the future has to be a way of trying to keep our athletes fueled optimally, and then trying to keep our athletes dentally healthy and so that they have still teeth when they retire. And then, there's different ways forward. And if you kind of go back to the basic functions of what we're trying to do with our teeth are there to, mainly chew and eat and be able to mash up our food so that it's absorbed and digested properly. So they're also there to help us maybe speak and give our a sound and sounds in our voice. But they're also important then in terms of our appearance and our facial appearance. So the teeth are kind of bystanders in the whole thing. The Every day we're trying to sort of look at ways to fuel and get the fuel past these teeth and into our bodies. And you can kind of look at it that nearly like the way we work for our athletic training, we're pushing, we're training, we're probably creating an injury, and then we kind of go into recovery mode. So on a daily basis, we're trying to push our bodies, and we're maybe pushing to a point where we're doing some damage, and then we kind of recover from that damage because we do some things that kind of repair what we've done. And trying to think of things that we can do with the teeth, we can kind of look at it that way, that yes, maybe we were going to go through periods where we're going to damage our teeth in these events, but we then have to look at ways that we can kind of put some recovery mechanism in that puts us back on track and helps us not go in a continual downward spiral, that our teeth are getting more and more decayed, and we're ending up with broken teeth and decayed teeth and abscess teeth. More visits to the dentist and more general woes. So if you kind of look at it from a point of view of, from me as a cyclist, I kind of look at it, well, start the day. How do you start the day in an ideal tip-top way? So, the first thing is basically kind of start the day with a clean slate. We clean our teeth, and if you think about why would we clean our teeth? Well, for any decay process, we kind of need some sort of plaque or bacteria in our teeth. And then if we add in fuel, which is the sugars, so if we add sugars in, those sugars are going to then convert to acid, and the acid unfortunately erodes the enamel of the tooth and then breaks the protective barrier. And once the acid breaks that protective barrier, we get cavities, and then the process just kind of keeps going till we hit the nerves, and then at that point, that's when the toothache starts. And sometimes that's sadly the point where somebody gets into bother. I've been there myself when I was a kid. Dentists didn't start off being heroes with teeth and toothbrushes and things like that. Yeah, so I kind of neglected things and did all the things. We enjoyed the sweets and sugary drinks, and ended up with toothache. And the I think I probably actually ended up having to ride my bike to an emergency dentist when I was a student, and out of hours, and beg for them to open the practice to ease my pain. So those were hard lessons. Through my sort of university days and learning more about dentistry and then working as a dentist, then you kind of gradually realize there's things that we can do to kind of protect ourselves.
That like you're talking about there, starting the morning, starting the day on a clean slate, and brushing before you consume any foods or liquids or whatever. And that's always been what I've heard as well. But I've sort of wondered, as we lean further and further into, like, I speak to writers now and talking about they're having Cocoa Pops and marshmallows for breakfast to get enough carbohydrates in. And I'm wondering if, or I think you've already answered, but I've always been wondering, considering that type of breakfast, should we be brushing after the consuming that? But it sounds from what you're saying, it's the combination of what already exists before brushing and then the breakfast that causes the harm, not the breakfast itself.
You need a certain amount of bacteria and plaque in our teeth, and we all have that. It's just like natural. We have a natural bacterial level in our mouths, the same as we have gut and bacteria, and we have healthy gut bacteria. But the problem is when those bacteria get, too much sugar, their byproduct is acid, and the acid then will decay the teeth. So it's trying to work out what way, if we can start with as minimal a plaque coating on the tooth. Because if you think about it, if we've been sleeping all night and we get up in the morning, there's no doubt to have some sort of plaque build up on the surface of our tooth, which is a sort of like a biofilm on our teeth. And then if we clear that off to start with, well, then that's kind of starting, no matter what carbohydrate then passes our teeth, there's less there to metabolize the sugars into acid. So yeah, so starting off with, get up first thing, brush your teeth, and then do all your, yeah, in your ideal word, your stretching and all your bits and pieces, fuel up for the day. Yes, you could kind of rinse your teeth and brush your teeth again after that, and that will, sort of leave you again with a clean slate starting the morning. So if you headed out and you were in your bike race, it's very hard to kind of do things. We'll take, for example, a training ride. So if you were going out on a training ride today and you're kind of looking, well, what do I take with me? You have solid food, you have liquid carbohydrate in your bottles, and you want to kind of take a mix of those things. So ideally, you want to have things that you can fuel up to your ideal capacity, but maybe having along with you something that you could use to kind of give the teeth a rinse and rinse some of the sticky stuff off your teeth. If you think about it, anything that's going to stick and linger around your teeth is going to do more damage than something that's kind of cleared very easily. So if you have a soft gel and it's, clears off the surfaces of your teeth and off the surfaces of your mouth easily, then that's actually pretty, it's not going to be too bad. If you have some real sticky sweet that you find yourself for the next 20 miles trying to clear it off from your teeth, or you still have bits stuck in the wee grooves of your teeth, or that's going to do more damage. So anything that's going to linger there for the next 20 minutes is no. Now the converse of that is that's slowly releasing carbohydrate for the next 20 minutes. And but if you're looking at it from the tooth point of view, yes, you want to get it in and over and bypass the teeth. So the other way is, how do we deliver these things to our mouths and to our gut, or to our bodies, that can maybe protect the teeth a bit? And so if we're going to deliver something in it, you kind of think, well, if it doesn't get near the teeth in the first place, then the teeth are protected a bit. There will always be a sugar level in our saliva, and so you're kind of looking at, in an ideal world, using your water bottle with the pull out the cap on it, the nozzle on it, and try and squirt it past the front teeth. It's the same as we would recommend for kids if they're taking sugary drinks or they're out. Use a straw, because the straw is going to bypass your front teeth, and that's going to at least give them a wee bit more chance that they're not going to get the same coating of the sugar. Now, we all know from lots of studies that sugar's one of these things that gets easily absorbed, and one of the big benefits, and people say hold it in your cheek because it's going to go straight into the bloodstream. And if you're trying to get something down you in the last 5K of a race, you want to basically put something and hold it in your cheek. It's going to get straight into the bloodstream. It's going to go and get to the legs and get to the areas where you need it, or the brain, faster. If you wait for it to get digested and then absorbed, it's going to be an awful lot slower. So yes, that comes to the point where your thoughts for teeth go out the window. Your kind of thought for that victory in the next 5K go up, and there's a sort of trade off. So yeah, by all means, you see people say, look, hold this in your mouth and this is going to give you a boost and it's going to do that. But generally, anything that's sticky or anything that's going to be really clingy to your teeth, you want to try and get away. And the other way around that is to maybe mix up the bottles that you have. Have one bottle with a carb mix and one with the water or your hydration mix, your salt solution, and that way, after you've taken the high carb one, you kind of give the mouth a rinse with the water to try and clear some of the stuff off the teeth. And again, that minimizes it hanging around on the surface of the teeth for a longer period.
Yeah, I think for most riders, certainly those with a performance mindset, they'll be thinking Okay, I accept it's not ideal for my teeth, but I am not willing to accept compromising performance in the short term. And those sorts of bits of advice you're giving in terms of how do we mitigate the risk if you are going to do this, I think are very useful. Like so, yeah, like you said, maybe having a bottle of water or something softer that gets straight past. Or I think I heard the entrepreneurs all rushing out to develop cycling bottles with straws there, just as you were speaking.
If you wanted to sort of design a bottle that would be good for teeth, that would be the way forward. I thought in my head here, like I this could be a way forward. Design a bottle that gets it past. But you see, that would help for ultra endurance athletes and things. Try and bypass the teeth a bit. So that's we're just like the event itself is pushing our bodies to a limit. There's things that we're doing in these events that are pushing what we can, what's good for our teeth to the limit. And then if you kind of look at it the other way and say, well, right, okay, we're going to accept that. We don't want to reduce our performance here. We want to get the fuel in. How can we then, once we've got a PB and once we've, we've got to the finish line, how can we then put something back into the equation? So at that point, then again, if there's still sticky things hanging around your teeth, you want to get them washed off. You want to then
And are you
look at
washing just with water, or like at that point, would you think a mouth rinse, yeah, the proper,
yeah. So the cleansing action of it is basically anything you can get that's going to get that sticky, sugary stuff off the teeth. So if it's water, if it's mouthwash, if you're actually brushing your teeth, the problem you have is if you go aggressively brushing your teeth at a kind of vulnerable period where there's a buildup of acid on the surface of your teeth, you're creating the ideal environment because you've got an acid and then you've got a physical abrasion. You're going to wear the teeth, so you maybe don't want to just brush hard at that particular time. So that's the time to sort of, yes, get the water in, get the something that's going to be anti-acid, and get something that's going to be going to kick off the reverse process. But actually, just to sort of cleanse the mouth and get rid of the carbohydrate from that around the teeth is the ideal thing. And then later at night, when the dust is settled, that's when you can really kind of do a recovery on the teeth, because again, you're kind of looking at it from a point of view of, well, what can I do now? The kind of battle's over. We're going to clean the teeth back to nice, clean, healthy surface teeth again, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put something on these teeth. So people put their recovery boots on for their legs, or they put muscle rub on at night for magnesium. But if they put fluoride and toothpaste on their teeth, that's going to basically soak into the teeth and actually try and remineralize the teeth, so that some of the acid erosion that was done and some of the damage that was done is then going to be reversed. So you have, when you're sleeping at night, so that, this isn't, if you think about when we brush our teeth, quite often we like to rinse our mouths and rinse everything away, and we think that that's clean. But at bedtime, after you've brushed the teeth, the simplest thing is leave a coating of the toothpaste on the teeth. And if it's a fluoride-based toothpaste, that's leaving a coating of fluoride around the teeth and in the wee interdental spaces between the teeth, so that that's going to sort of, while you're sleeping and trying to recover, those things are going to help your teeth recover from maybe the damage that was done. And so you're kind of putting something back. There are patients and there are people that we'd recommend who have a very high decay rate, and we would actually even make them up like a small gum shield that they can put a form of a fluoridated gel or toothpaste inside that, and they can wear that when they're sleeping at night to kind of hold it around the teeth for longer. And so that even in cases where the patients are struggling with higher decay rates than normal, then those are simple things that they can do that don't cost any more, and they don't need more visits to the dentist as a sort of protective thing to put on their teeth at night and reverse that. Now, when we mention fluoride, sometimes there's a sort of eyebrows raised from people who are anti-fluoride. Fluoride's been used in toothpastes for years, and I know that some people and some groups of people are dead against anything put in their bodies, and but the potential benefit of that again outweighs any small side effect that the fluoride's going to have. So, as a dentist, dentists, and I probably would say that the majority of dentists will be saying yes, fluoride toothpaste is the way forward. It's been used for the last 100 years, but research could say different. But at the moment, that's the best thing for trying to protect and remineralize your teeth. And we were chatting there, but it's a frequency. So it's the cycle of things, and 1 or 2 days a week you get away with doing it. But if you were really sore on the teeth every single day of the week, then unfortunately the net effect is backwards.
I have a confession to make in that, I did that circumnavigation of Ireland recently, and that was actually since I've last been in to see you. And I had all these great intentions. I had my chewable toothpaste packed, and I kind of misunderstood what that was. I thought that was something you could chew and spit out, but what I realized then was it's a tablet that you still need to use a toothbrush with it. But I picked up a toothbrush. I think it took me 2 days to remember to pick up a toothbrush, and then I was so fatigued by that point that it was another 2 days before I could find the energy to use it. So that was a bad week for my teeth. But like, if I think back to, you're talking about the frequency and that, and I was always told eat a little and drink a little, but do it often. And I'm kind of wondering, like, and again, there might be a balancing act here in terms of performance trade-off and oral health, but would you recommend as a dentist, if you figured out 100 grams per hour is what you need in terms of carbohydrates, take that 100 grams in one go and get the damage over and done with, or is spreading it 5 times 20 grams throughout the hour, is there any more or less damage going one way or the other?
The damage, unfortunately, the frequency is the killer. So you take, for example, a cyclist out on a training ride, and they take a high carb drink. So the minute they take the sip, there's a coating of that around your teeth, and that coating, some of it gets converted into acid by the bacteria in your teeth and around your mouth, and there's your protection of your normal saliva in your mouth has a kind of watering down effect, and there's antibacterial things in your saliva that protect us. So after about maybe 10-15 minutes, we've actually cleared quite a bit of any sort of sugary debris that's on our teeth, and that attack window is just starting to, we're past that. So we're kind of going, right, well, we're kind of getting back to kind of the battle's over, and we can kind of put our guard down. But the way it works is 15 minutes later, we're taking another sip and we're starting to coat our teeth again. So that cycle then starts again. And if you repeat that every 10-15 minutes or even more frequent than that, that means that there's a constant, sugar solution being delivered to your teeth. And it's the frequency, that not necessarily the amount, so we're talking about different levels of carb. So you could have a solution that's, 60 grams of carb. You could have a solution that's 160 grams of carbs. But by taking a sip of either of those, there's probably enough sugar in that to start that decay process. And then, and obviously the higher the concentration, the more of effect. But even at a weaker solution, the frequency will do the damage. So some people think, well, it wasn't as strong I was taking, but because they're taking it every 10-15 minutes, that's still coating their teeth in a solution. And ultimately that does the damage. Now, I used to tell patients that, apart from cycling, I would say that, you take, for example, 3 Mars bars, and if I gave you 3 Mars bars and you ate all 3 in one go, after about 15 minutes, that sticky, sugary stuff's kind of gone from your teeth, and that kind of, attack process or period is past. And so, kind of 3 Mars bars is a large amount of sugar. But if, on the other hand, you had take, for example, half a tin of Coke, and you sip at it, and you do that for an hour. But it's you would look at that and go, well, there's less sugar in that than the three Mars bars, so it must be safer. But if you sip at it frequently every 5 minutes, over the next hour, that'll do more damage to your teeth, because it's the longevity of the sugar around the teeth, and it's the kind of frequency that it's kind of been delivered. And so I think from a cyclist point of view, and from any endurance person's point of view, there's not really a win. You're kind of going to have to take the fuel at the minute to keep you going. But the way that you can win in this is kind of afterwards. It's not really during it. It's kind of going, well, what can I do before? What can I do after? And what can I do the rest of my time when I'm not doing my 5 hour ride? Or that's the only window you have for putting things back. And I think that you could get lost trying to do things in between by, well, every 15 minutes I'm going to sip with this bottle, then I'm going to sip out of this bottle. But it would just fry your head. You know, you I think you just have to go with it, and go full throttle for the period, and then say, right, okay, well, let's maximize what we can do outside of this. And the other things would be even simple things like, we were saying after races, like, yogurts. Greek yogurt seems to be one of the in things for general health, which has probiotics, which work against dental bacteria. It's got sort of calcium in it that's going to help remineralize teeth. It's probably kind of more neutral pH, and it'll sort of wipe out some of the acids and things. So our dental bacteria that are in our mouths is basically an extension of the bacteria that's in our whole GI system. So we're kind of, if we have good bacteria and good health in our mouth and good health in our GI system, then that's going to help, one, keep our teeth. It's going to help keep our longevity, in terms of markers for infection. And different things have happened over the years. What we're focusing on now is talking about how sugars and high carb affects our teeth. The general bacteria and general health point of view of dental health, where if you think about plaque that gathers around our teeth, if there's a sort of hardened plaque or tartar around our teeth, that will lead to more bacteria. It's a rougher surface, and we get inflammation, we get gum disease. And if we've got gum disease, gum problems, then you've got inflammation, and it's the same as these other conditions that affect our gut. We've got inflammatory processes, and for somebody who's really wanting to maximize their high performance, if their dental health and dental hygiene's good, then their inflammatory processes that go on are greatly reduced, and there's less things to drag them down when their body's getting hit different other ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I remember hearing years ago from one of the British Cycling Academy writers that in the off season, British Cycling had them, or the coaches had them every single off season. The first thing that to do was go to the dentist and have their teeth checked out. And it was said to me that this was because if your teeth are in poor condition, you're not going to be able to perform to your utmost potential. And do you think that's what I never quite got the explanation of why that was? I thought it was a good idea. Go and see your dentist every October or whatever it might be, depending on where you are in the world. But is it that bad teeth can lead to bad performance?
Yeah, well, there's two sides to that. So the one side would be, yeah, we're all cyclists and athletes in general are pretty fit, healthy people, and that's why they're able to perform the way they are. But quite often their immune system is also kind of, when it's ideal, it's running well, and it's kind of working to defend the person against, if there's a tooth that's been niggling and there's been a low grade infection in that tooth, it might not be enough to bother somebody because their immune system has been able to sort of keep it at bay. But then once the sort of the toll of maybe a heavy endurance race or a heavy block of training, or heavy race program takes its toll, then their ability to kind of keep things in check goes down. And the next thing, something that their body was kind of managing and dealing with, suddenly the infection gets hold, and the next thing they're floored with this acute dental infection. Could be an abscessed tooth, or it could be an infection of the gum. And then, once that kicks off, then that can really floor you. So you're, it's just like coming down with a really bad, stomach problems, or those sort of things can really knock somebody for six and derail where they're at. So obviously, if you keep ahead of the dental problems and keep ahead of, if the teeth are checked and you've had some x-rays and things to check that there's no signs of infection, no signs of abscesses in the teeth, then, your training and things won't be derailed mid-season by the fact that there was a tooth that you didn't look at, that it had a hole in it, and now that hole has got deeper, and now there's infection, and now that event that you'd spent the last 3 months training for, which is 2 weeks away, you're going around trying to find an emergency dentist.
Are you smiling because that's what I did earlier this year?
No, that wasn't pointed at you, Ronan. Sorry. But that can happen, and that's even speaking for myself, because I can see it happening. Because you focus on everything that's important to you, and that'll get done sometime. And I'm busy, and it's maybe hard to get into a dentist to get things checked. So sometimes it's hard to make appointments. These things kind of get second, third, fifth, 10th priority, and then it's only when it really kicks off that then you're trying to fight it to get it sorted.
And I'm not pointing any fingers in the other direction, but people also are, have genuine fears or phobias of going to the dentist, maybe based on prior experience, or maybe, I don't know what it is, but I know that can be an issue for people as well, and leads to putting it off probably.
Yeah, no. So the even dentists aren't heroes at the dentist. So people, have fears, and like if you weren't having any trouble, well, I don't really want to go and see that person, like, because why should I go if I'm not having any trouble? The other reverse of that is, if you do go along and things don't, there's more minor things need done, then they're usually easy fixed, and usually that visit's not so bad, and then the kind of experience has been pretty good. Unfortunately, if it gets to the stage where the person's got a swollen jaw, and they've got this is you've been up all night for 2 nights with pain, and then the next thing is you're getting an emergency appointment, and you're really wrung out at that stage. So the stress levels, and the kind of all the things that the emotions are running sky high. So it's trying to keep you ahead of ever being in that situation, or ever being in that dark place,
Okay, folks, that's where we're cutting off the free version of this podcast this week. Just a reminder, if you head over to escapecollective.com/member, you can sign up now and you can get the entire podcast uninterrupted. You'll not have me butting in to cut you off or to remind you that you're not yet a member. And in doing so, you will be helping to ensure this podcast continues for many more episodes and months and years to come. So head over escapecollective.com/member now to sign up to Escape Collective and to get the entire episode of Performance Process, along with all of the other podcasts and written content that we publish on our website.